All right, let's go to Paul Lane, MHA for Mount Pearl South. How you doing, sir?
I'm great, Pete. How are you this morning?
Very good. Your turn to call today?
What's that?
Is it your turn to call today?
Well, Pete, I call on a consistent basis every week, and I don't need anyone to tell me when it's my turn. I never have, I never will. But anyway.
I know.
Pete, I wanted to talk about, I guess, the deficit situation and in particular the whole concept of half province. But before I do, I just wanted to very quickly, I guess, publicly congratulate Mr. Richard Lavagne. I had the opportunity this Tuesday at the Mount Pearl Council meeting to award him the Queen's Diamond Jubilee. And Richard has been a great community volunteer over the years, been involved with many things in our community, whether it be through the Kinsman the Kinsman Club, the Park Place Community Centre, the Men's Mount Pearl Softball League, and chair the Frosty Festival and everything else in between. A great individual, a great volunteer, and it was this Tuesday. He was very deserving for sure.
Yeah, well deserved, I'm sure.
Absolutely. Now, what I wanted to just talk about, Pete, because I've certainly been listening to some of the I guess radio TV ads that talk about have province. If we're a have province, we should have people. I've certainly heard members of the opposition throw that line around. I've seen Miss Michael had a tweet out, I believe, last night, and it said have province ? Ask the people who are on boil water orders and so on. So you're seeing this have province piece thrown out there, I guess, in a negative kind of way to try to make a point, I guess. But I think it is. But I think when we do it in that way, I think it's very misleading, and I think it's important that we need to clarify what have province actually means. And have province is simply a formula, which is, I guess, applied through the federal government. And basically what have province means is that as a province, we have enough resources coming in and enough finances that we do not receive equalization. So instead of getting, we still get our transfer payments from Ottawa for health and so on, and some infrastructure money through certain programs like other provinces would, but we do not receive equalization payments. And that's all it means. We pay our own way in that regard. It doesn't mean that we have millions and billions of dollars to spend. And it also...
It means, according to the federal government, that we're doing well enough in terms of our revenues that they don't have to transfer any more to us.
Correct.
Which leads us back to the question is, why don't we have enough?
Well, like the question is, and there's a number of things we have to factor in here, okay? First of all, that's exactly what it means, that we can pay our own bills. So we're not receiving that equalization money from Ottawa. Right. It doesn't mean we have an endless supply of money. It also does not factor in, okay, what our deficit, what our provincial debt. That's not factored into that equation. Neither is the infrastructure deficit that we have had, and we've continued to have to some degree. We've put a huge dent into it, and that's where we've made a lot of investment. But it doesn't factor that in, and that's the reason, quite frankly, at the time when former Premier Williams came down and he had the $2 billion, and we all remember that, he said, we've got it at the airport. But one of the things that was certainly agreed to at that time was that there would be a period of time where, even though we had, I guess, reached what would be considered have province status based on the revenues coming in, structure deficit, in recognition of the fact that we had a huge debt in the province, that there was an agreement that we would continue on with transfer payments over and above for a number of years so we can play catch-up. I'm sure you can recall, I can certainly recall Premier Williams at the time talking about that, how we would play catch-up because of the the state we were in at the time. Now, we've certainly invested heavily into infrastructure that needed to be done, and we've certainly paid down our debt by like $4 billion. We've put like $4 billion into the pension plan. I know the $2 billion check went right into, I believe it was the teacher's pension plan at the time.
That's right.
So we have invested wisely in those things. But But the fact of the matter is that, you know, we still had that deficit, that infrastructure deficit and everything to deal with. That's why we were supposed to continue to receive the money. Of course, we know that a few years ago when the government changed, that the federal government basically made changes to the Atlantic Accord. And as a result, you know, we also know that all of the Liberal MPs, Mr. Byrne and so on, got up and voted for the budget that saw that happen. But the bottom line is we lost that ability to catch up. But
just let me interject here for a second.
Realize what half-province meetings will be.
Let me jump in here for a second.
Sure, you go right ahead. Absolutely.
Obviously, there are a lot of needs out there. There are a lot of places that were sorely lacking in attention, and we had to address some of them when we started to get some of this revenue.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, you know, you saw fit to increase the public service enormously over the last number of years, knowing full well that we were going to come to this day when things were going to get a bit tight, and we had some big projects that we wanted to invest in as well.
Yep.
So, I mean, that leads to the question of why do we allow that to happen so that now we have to see all of these layoffs? You sort of brought people in, and now you got to let them go again, and we're really a lot of turmoil in their lives that maybe could have been avoided if they haven't been hired in the first place.
Yeah, well, Pete, you know, the bottom line is that when we had the another place where we had to play catch up, quite frankly, was in terms of services and programs that were being offered in other provinces and so on that we weren't offering. And you know, when the bottom line is when we had the revenues coming in, that we were able to do more. Whether that be, you know, offer additional services, whether it be enhanced services, whether it be put money into much-needed infrastructure and so on, whether it be, you know, rewarding our employees for the great work we did. And we gave them a very handsome pay increase. It was 20%. I think it was like 21.6 compounded when we had the money to do that. Now is that, you know, because of the world economy, because of the oil prices, and it just goes to show, I guess one of the arguments that was made for Muskrat Falls is we need to start to diversify our economy to get away from these non-renewable resources in oil, which are very volatile. It makes up for 1/3 of our entire budget. And once when oil prices go down, it has an impact on us. And by the way, this is not just unique to Newfoundland and Labrador. This is happening all across the country. I mean, when we think about Alberta, when most people think about wealth in Canada, certainly in this province, we all think about Alberta. We think about Fort Mac and Alberta in general, where they had this big heritage fund where nobody was paying taxes and everybody's making huge dollars. Well, you know what? Alberta had budgeted for this upcoming year. They were looking at a deficit of, I believe it was $835 million. And now that's ballooned. They're now predicting that's going to be a $3 billion deficit this year in 1 year, and that's oil-rich Alberta.
Yeah.
So, you know, this is not something, you know, we can all try to paint a negative picture that somehow this is all about Newfoundland and Labrador, this is all about mismanagement. But the fact of the matter is that any province in the country which is dependent on natural resources, on oil resources and so on, are going through the exact same thing. And I think it's very important.
I could counter and say just because it's not just us doesn't make it any better here. But
yeah, we can always counter every argument, Pete, but I think, you know, when people try to somehow paint this picture of Newfoundland and Labrador, you have to put it in context around what's happening across the country, what's happening around the world, around the globe, because we do live in a global economy, and I think it's important to go back to those things and realize.
Pauline, it's going to be fun to watch as the House resumes, so thank you very much for your call today. We're off to our break, but again, appreciate it, and we'll talk again soon.
Not a problem, Pete, and we'll be talking again next week.
Okay.
Have a good one.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.